Griffin, so I gotta ask you. So where are you at right now with the Owen Hart Cup? Wednesday, we had some. Surprisingly, I was really surprised we had a clean finish within Mercedes Moné and Athena.
Mm-hmm.
We had Josh Alexander making his debut as the wild card. How entertained are you by like the Owen Hart Cup tournament right now? I feel like this by miles is the best iteration that the tournament has done so far. But what do you think?
I agree with you that the tournament matches, the build, the story behind it has been stronger than previous years. I do think this one might be the most predictable in who we're going to see. I thought last night's match between Mercedes and Athena was going to tell us who was going to face Toni Storm. I think Monet being a belt collector, there's two more belts that she can collect with the Owen Hart belt and the AEW Women's Championship. But while I'm not crazy about a title versus title match and putting their potentially their two biggest women in the same match,
Right.
but tonight it kind of came down to potentially Statlander and Toni Storm at the end of the night when they were facing off.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had thought all along, I had pitched this the other day, and I was just under the impression, could they draw Mercedes and Athena? Just because I just was under the impression, is it too early to beat either one of them? And then you automatically have Hayter and Stat as your finals for the Owen at Double or Nothing.
Yeah.
To me, that just makes the most sense. Now, I was very surprised Monet just won clean. I mean, supposedly she grabbed some tights, but the monitor went out, so who knows? Who knows, honestly.
Yep.
But she won, and hometown win, and I thought that if that was the first of many, I'm really excited to see what the ceiling of the next matches of those two have in their bag.
I tell you, that was the best Mercedes that we've seen since she's come to AEW, in my opinion, last night. And she's had some other great matches, but man, between the crowd, I think Athena wanted to prove herself.
Mm-hmm.
Audience that doesn't watch ROH all the time, and they had a tremendous match last night.
Yeah, it was interesting because it wasn't a work of art by any means. It was a struggle. It was a fight.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're fighting somebody, it's not going to just be this 5-star Mona Lisa piece of art that you're going to draw, by paint. They actually struggled, and I think it added to the craft of what they were trying to tell in the ring. And all this, all the spots. I mean, the power bombs and the apron spots and the stunners, that just fabulous stuff. I mean, both ladies, obviously, great gear from both women. I really, really thought it was cool that they allowed the women to open the show to kind of set the tone, which, I mean, good Lord, could you imagine if they would have had to follow a Takeshita and Ospreay? So that was a very, very wise choice, and I'm glad they gave Mercedes and that hometown moment. And what a cool venue! That was so cool.
I love that AEW is going to venues like this. So to back up to the struggle, I love that. I think AEW gives us plenty of 5-star matches, and they don't all need to be. We've got to have more variety. We've got to have the wrestling buffet that Dusty Rhodes used to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Wrestling is a buffet, baby. You got to have a little bit of everything, and I think that match helped that. But back to the venue, they're going to a lot of concert venues. I know they're going to be in Colorado, so I'm going to a place called the Mission Ballroom, where I've seen many concerts setting up this concert venue for a wrestling thing. One of the things about Paul Heyman back in the ECW days, he would always book a building that would sell out. He could have booked bigger buildings, but he wanted it to be the hot ticket, and you had to hurry up and buy your ticket before it sold out. So I think being the smaller promotion, running smaller buildings, making it a hotter ticket for the hardcores and making it an event, then you get a full building of excited people. And, we saw that both nights, especially last night. But, you pile a bunch of people into a concert venue and you're a little bit more on top of each other. And it just made for a really cool venue, and then makes the place look full, which gives it so much more energy than these half-empty arena shows they've had. So some may look at it as a step down, but I think it's a smart move.
No, and especially like on these Collision shows, I think that just helps the mood and vibe tremendously, because those doldrum days where they were in those 12,000 seater arenas and it was like 1,200 people and it was just like dire. I just loved this setup, because obviously this venue is very unique because it's right outside, the Green Monster in Boston. And I was completely unaware if they had something like this. And like you had mentioned, it was almost like a Hammerstein setup where they was like stacked on each other. Yeah. And the way it was like filmed, because when you film that, if we can give props to TNA, I feel like out of any North American company, they always did a great job of providing the illusion, making 3,000 people look and sound like about 6,000. Yeah. And when you're in a venue like that, that's the advantages, because it looked like, to the naked eye, you could have said, oh, this was like 5,000 people. And I think it was like 3,000.
Yeah, 3,000, I think, was the first night. So I don't know how many they had the second night. But yeah, I do like the concert arenas. I've been to indie shows that set up, and it can make for a really good arena in the right situation.
Yeah, and obviously we'll pivot to the men's bracket of the own real quick. We've got one semifinal, Hangman, Kyle Fletcher on one side, and then we've got Will already punched his ticket to the finals.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just unbelievable, the chemistry between Takeshita and Ospreay, this was a little bit different from their pay-per-view match too, because I've tried to find and analyze the way Ospreay kind of does his TV matches differently, because I think he figured out, hey, I can't really do these 25-30 minute classics on TV. I've got to find another pace to do it, where if I can do a nice little 10 to 12, I think that's the perfect range for him on TV, just because, like you said, AEW we're spoiled because we get all these 5-star matches all the time. But, as a fan, I want range. I want to be able to see something a little bit different. So I'm glad he's been able to kind of self-analyze, okay, I need to kind of bring back. But then when Tony booked this match, especially for the occasion, the anniversary, and, was this also just kind of a flex per se to say, hey, like, good luck trying to beat this match all weekend, like all across indies and other big promotions, because they're going to struggle for that. And by God, their chemistry was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I was actually there for their first match at Revolution.
Oh, excellent!
I'm an old school WCW guy. It's what got me into wrestling, and it was Sting versus Ravishing Rick Rude was the first program.
Oh my God, that sounds
to go to Sting's retirement was the highlight of my 2024. The barbecue in North Carolina is a second there though. But that match was incredible, and they don't know how to have a bad match with anyone. So when you get them together, I just think Takeshita he is so money for so many years. If he can become a character that American fans will follow and watch and care about, because he has everything you need in the ring.
Yeah, I fell in love with Takeshita. I don't know if you remember this match. So this was live in Austin. It's when Rampage was still like kicking around and they like cared. Do you remember? I believe this was Takeshita Moxley 2.
Okay.
And this was a Rampage match, and they opened with it, and it was. I think I would still put this up there. I would put this up as like a top 10 AEW match for me, just in general, because it was just phenomenal. This is when, Moxley, the day ended in Y, so Moxley was like bleeding like a madman. I think the match might have went about 12 or 15 minutes. And it was right before Christmas too. So like there were Santas in the, the front deck. Everybody was decked out in Christmas gear. And this was before Takeshita really got a big win. And everybody was so desperate for him to get, his big win. And Moxley hit, I think it was the paradigm shift. He went for a cover. He kicked, Takeshita kicks out one. The crowd just explodes. And, JR is on the call and he's going crazy and he's putting over Takeshita. And then Takeshita is actually doing these stomping knees into Moxley. And it was just like, okay, they have got something with this guy. They just need to give him the proper push. And
yeah,
I feel like, like you said, once he actually resonates connecting back as a babyface, I think there's opportunity there to like move forward to really connect with fans.
Yeah.
But we'll get into some other topics on the show. But it's time to actually introduce ourselves. This is this program. This is a special PWTorch Pro wrestling post show. This is Thursday, April the 17th. This is AEW Collision on TNT where it aired. We are live on YouTube. My name is Brian Zilem. I am one half of the Collision Cafe. I cover AEW Collision on PWTorch, and my normal co-host Amina Jenny could not join us this evening, so I made a hot tag, and Wade did find me a partner for this evening. We are joined by PWTorch Collision TV reporter Griffin. Griffin, thanks for joining us, and it's nice to actually meet you and collaborate with you for the first time.
Hey, yeah, nice to be here. Joining the Torch team as a contributor. I've been a Torch reader since I was 15 years old. I think I was reading Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and there was a article for a special "What Really Happened Behind the Scenes" with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
Oh wow!
Special issue, and I ordered that, and I found wrestling. I was 15 and reading after mags off of the newsstand, and found something a little deeper. And then when came to the internet age, I learned what a podcast was because of the Torch. So kind of neat and a little surreal to be on one of these.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I mean, we've got a Collision show to review, and we can kind of just pick at it and attack it however you would like. I know we kind of touch base a little bit. Now, any calls that come in, or if you want to feel like you want to jump on the show, we'll definitely get you on stage, and we'll definitely check out your comments as we go along. Goodfellow, we see you here in the chat. Anyone surrendered by DVDs, I trust. I won't watch all of the movies, but I appreciate all the commitment. Oh, they're talking about your setup. Okay, very cool, very cool.
This is just the wrestling corner. It's
wow.
It is insane how many movies I've got. So hopefully I won't get in trouble, but I have a little side business, so you can go to nerdstalgia.shop, and there's all kinds of wrestling collectibles, movies, and other things.
Interesting. As a young lad, I don't know why, I always remember getting the old WWF pay-per-views at Blockbuster.
Yeah.
Whenever they were available. Hell in a Cell, I think that was obviously one that popped up. I think it was King of the Ring 94 or 95.
Hart win? Bret Hart win or the Owen win?
This was it was Owen. It was Owen.
Okay. That would have been 94.
94. Okay, yeah. I just remember just anytime there was a new tape that actually popped up, that was kind of my poor man's version of like tape trading at the time, because I didn't know anything. Like AOL just started up. I wasn't really super privy to like the online Discord at the time. The originating startup of ICW, I suppose. But yeah, my tape trading skills basically originated from Blockbuster.
Yeah. It was the first WrestleMania I watched. It was WrestleMania 6, and it was a rental because I didn't have cable as a kid. So it was just WCW Worldwide. But then when you went to the video store, there were all kinds of cool things to check out.
Yeah, or if you wanted to kind of be cool, you could almost get the scrambled version of the pay-per-view and kind of just listen to everything Viva Audio through
I did that
Jim
for
Ross.
some other channels, but
Excellent. Let's see. Goodfella, figured you were a movie buff. I wasn't even thinking Grasp, but that's on me. Cool collection. Cheers. Appreciate you, Goodfella. And Griffin, now just this collision. Now, it's pretty fair that this show was not going to top last night because some are calling Dynamite last night probably one of the better Dynamites in the history of AEW.
Yeah. From a match perspective, absolutely.
You know what? I liked it because the flow, it was the way the entire thing was simple and it wasn't overthought at all. I think that was my favorite part of the show, and everything just flew by. Like, tonight flew by. I mean, Collision always flies by, but Dynamite sometimes can drag, but just everything was boom, boom, boom. There was no shenanigans. Obviously, the giant smudge at the end, the triple threat. But I mean, regarding everything that led up with the Death Riders and almost I was like, oh my God, so this actually makes sense for the Death Riders to be jerks and win like this all the time, just to get that reaction from the crowd. But just top-notch stuff up and down from that Dynamite card last night. Collision, I would say it was a fun to good show. I wouldn't say it was like blow away by any means. Obviously we did get a angle or more of a promo kind of follow up from the Death Riders, but I would say everything else was pretty good to fun for the most part on the card as far as the matches they lined up.
Yeah, I think you can't have big shows without a build from other shows.
Yeah.
So you do need Megan Bayne going over like a beast over two women.
Yes.
Megan Bayne is the future of that women's division. She is incredible, and I haven't really been able to see her talk or perform right now, which is okay. We don't need all of it at once, but her presence, her power, I thought she was awesome against Toni Storm in the last pay-per-view and was protected really well. You talk about that one count kick out. It was the same thing with her kicking out and, having to eat after eating a bunch of moves and then, winning on a roll-up from a veteran that was just smarter that night. She's incredible. Another squash match with, again, I grew up watching WCW Worldwide. So we had 3 squash matches and then a main event that would always have shenanigans. So squash matches don't bother me. And I see them as a way to build them up. And, we just got to see a trio of luchadors go out there and destroy 3 local jabronis that got a fun payday and some television time.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Hologram out there, maybe, just because he is a true collider. Although he's made Dynamite cameos here and there, but I think it is fair to bring up that although the roster tonight might have been a little light, a lot of people have been traveling or are actually working shows right now in Las Vegas, so. If there were the big names, obviously we weren't going to get Swerve or, Hurt Syndicate. The majority of those people were traveling and have other, obligations at this point. I mean, obviously it was very nice that the, Death Riders did show up because it was obviously important for them to follow up from their, first kind of defeat in a very, very long time. So that was at least good that we got that follow up. But like you said, this was kind of like a bridge, and it's, this more or less, this is kind of just like the icing on the cake because everything, they had their cake last night. It was a big party. That was kind of like their, culmination of, of a very proud accomplishment of, passing WCW as the longest rating show, on Turner, which is, still a big deal. But, we could certainly kind of go piece by piece as matches. Let's see. We got Brian in the chat. Decent show tonight. As someone who was live there for Dynamite, I don't feel like I missed out much skipping tonight, though. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Brian, you probably saw the best part, which, I'm super jealous that you were there because it looked like a really, really good time. For moments, it kind of just gave me vibes of, smaller, impact, it kind of almost gave me Mick Foley pinning The Rock, and just, on a smaller kind of like impact, because I just couldn't remember so many fans just jumping up and down for joy, which I thought was really fun.
Yeah. And I think you're going to see more of that when they book those concert venues too. The one in Denver, if you're not a floor seat, you're general admission. So you're kind of crowding around, so it's the people that are eager that get there first, that find their seat next to the rail. So it's not the people that bought the seats in some of these situations, but the people who bought a seat and got there as quick as they could because they were the most eager.
Right. Well, we'll go ahead and just run through the show, and then we'll read your comments. And if you do want to join, we'll keep an eye out, and we'll get you on stage if you want to add to the conversation, or add anything else that if you were at the show, we definitely would love to hear from you and just provide your perspective. We'd certainly really appreciate it. Show opened up real quick with the Elton John theme, and then Tony and Nigel opened the show from the stage, and Marina basically attacked a crew member, which she kind of just threw him around like a rag doll, which is always kind of fun. She broke equipment, broke a camera, and then everybody saw the Death Riders kind of storming the ring, breaking everything, tables, cameras, whatever. The fans were chanting "F you, Yuta," and yelling at Moxley, "You tapped out," which, it's a good reaction from the crowd. Yeah. Moxley basically came down and said, "I hope you enjoy it for now, because it's the last time you're going to celebrate." Moxley said he doesn't like the Young Bucks and he wants nothing to do with them. So that's interesting story development. When I started the business, there was one undisputed bad man in the business, and that was Joe. And from that point, John Moxley said he wants to challenge Joe, and he doesn't care if he'll put up the world title to get his match with him. So very interesting. I'm intrigued to see if they actually do that on pay-per-view. Do they do that on TV? Because obviously we've got a Fight for the Fallen coming up as well.
My vote's for Fyter Fest in Denver, since I'll be there.
Okay.
But I could also see it maybe being Mox's match at Double or Nothing. But we're quite a ways out from that.
Yeah, we've got, good 5 weeks out from the show, and obviously they've got 2 matches already built up on the card, which is really, really cool. And so that's just 2 matches they don't already have, that's already penciled in. That's good. I don't, typically, Tony I think he's bending a little bit on his habits of tradition. There's not really obviously you could just throw the Death Riders in there, I guess you could, because everybody hates the Death Riders. Would you like to see Anarchy in the Arena at Double or Nothing, or could you maybe go out, do without it?
I don't know that that's a necessary match. That's never been a big draw for me, but I think they are building up to it. I mean, with Swerve having, strange bedfellows,
right.
And, the potential of, however they get to Swerve and Hangman versus the Young Bucks, I do look forward to that.
Yeah, I was obviously at the first one, so I'm a little biased just because that one was so awesome, and I still feel like that's the best one that they've done. I don't mind if they hold off on it, just because of the gravitas of the Owen. If they want to put more importance on the Owen, I'm really okay with that, just because we've got into these habits in the past where they want to build up these big shows, and then it's like 2 weeks after Anarchy in the Arena, we get Blood and Guts, and it's like, what? Wait, what? Why do we need to have both? Can it just be one? So I would honestly prefer one or the other. I would love for Blood and Guts to be on a pay-per-view. It really needs to be on a pay-per-view, honest. I think you really could do Anarchy in the Arena on TV and just be fine. because the way they shot it last year, where you had all the different camera angles and shots, if you could potentially do that on a Max situation, because especially since Max, I feel like, has upgraded their game all throughout the NCAA tournament. So I almost wonder, you go to a commercial break and have different live angles. You want to watch Moxley, you want to see Joe. There's a triage of different things you could do, but that would be my suggestion to Tony Khan and AEW if they were going to go to that route.
The problem with doing it in the arena is they are booking smaller shows for television.
Yes.
So how do you? I don't like. Oof. A concert venue, it's really rough to have because you don't really have a big venue or arena to move around in. There's not a lot of walkways. There's not going to be a lot of outside hallways.
Yeah, that is true. So they would have to get creative with the setup, and it would have to be where maybe there's a lot of just fighting outside the arena, which I'm kind of okay with. I think it would at least give them the opportunity to actually be creative and just say, we can't just, brawl all up and down like a big venue. Anybody could do that. Let's get creative. And then if you've got people like, Hangman involved and potentially the Bucks and Moxley and Joe, I feel like there's very good chances that you could have something really, really fun. So we'll see. I'm under the impression that would be the main event. I don't think they would do Anarchy in the arena and a world title match. I think we probably need to go without a Moxley title match on a pay-per-view until he's actually going to lose the thing for a while to not have fans really upset at everybody anymore. So that would be my suggestion. So if Moxley's involved in the main event, he's still involved, and he could usually get pinned or choked out again to even set up more tension, I guess, between him and Joe, because there obviously is still a long time before All In Texas, so that's July, and then you've got the TV special, like you mentioned, Griffin. So different ways you could do it. Let's see, and then first match: Kevin Knight, Lance Archer. How have you liked the Kevin Knight experience so far, Griffin?
I mean, he's exciting coming in. I think he's got great personality. He's fun to watch in the ring. Really good movement. So I'm in favor of him coming in. I thought he's done a really good job. I thought they did a great job in this match, putting Archer over as a powerhouse who got caught. And, it's the same story we just told with Megan Bayne and Tony Storm. He was a little less one-sided with the ladies, but, you can't do the too much, this powerhouse, this little guy, and then, a finish. But, he got that finish over a credible opponent, and we'll see where they go next. I know he's got a match with the Young Bucks coming up. They announced with him and Speedball.
That should be very entertaining.
Yeah.
Very entertaining. I'm really surprised. He was out there for a while. Kevin Knight, he was out there for a while. I've seen him a few times in the Indies here in Austin, Texas. Very nice kid. I feel like there's a lot there. He's definitely changed his body. He's definitely gotten bigger and stronger. And it's hard to kind of describe his movements in the ring. I feel like he kind of almost moves like a swerve. Just because he's so unique just because he moves so differently. So I could see maybe if someone's not familiar with that style per se, they could struggle. But I feel like he's like a swerve. He moves like Swerve, but he's as athletic as Montez Ford.
Yeah.
Just especially the way he jumps out of the ring.
Yeah.
He had a really good showing with Archer tonight. Archer, I thought, made him look like $1 million. They played that. It wasn't typically, a big versus small man. It was to a degree, but basically Archer made sure Knight was going to beat him by using his athleticism. In the end, he did. But obviously the couple spots that Knight got in, I believe he kicked Archer in the face with a drop kick and got him outside the ring with the jumping lariat, and then he won with the jumping lariat. I'm not sure what that finisher is called, but Archer got a good couple fun spots in. Unfortunate that this is probably going to be his role until Brian Cage gets back from his injury, but speedy recovery from Brian Cage. Unfortunate that we didn't get the Murder Machines versus the Hurt Syndicate, because that could have been really, really fun to see.
Yeah, Hurt Syndicate has turned into just an incredible tag team. I was listening to somebody else today, kind of comparing them to the Steiner brothers and saying, if wrestling was a real fight, who would defeat these two like legit athletes? And they're just powerhouses who know how to hurt people.
I saw them in Austin against the Guns, and to me, I feel like that's been their best match as a tag team so far. It was interesting because that was still kind of in the ether. They were really starting to get over as a team. Mm-hmm. And I told Wade the story the night I called in, the following day, because Dynamite was actually taped that night, that there was a small child, probably of the age anywhere between 4 to 5, just on his mom's lap, just chanting, "We hurt people." And I just thought that was about the cutest damn thing I've ever seen at a wrestling show. So I declared at that point with a good friend of PWTorch, Cameron Hawkins, that they really need to push these guys as a babyface, because they are just too damn cool. And, just the fact that for both of their ages, I mean, they're close to 50, both of them, and they look like they're still in their 20s, and they move around in their 20s. And I'm really, really happy that people are really showing their appreciation and admiration for Shelton Benjamin, because he's been a longtime favorite. Because through that weird, ruthless aggression era, I feel like sometimes he's gotten lost in the shuffle. So a lot of younger fans may not be really familiar with Shelton Benjamin. Obviously he's a decorated collegiate athlete and, a wrestler. And it's funny, Griffin, I always use my wife as kind of like a barometer, just kind of like, a casual, or just when I've got a wrestling question for her. So I remember the first time, I think Shelton Benjamin was wrestling Swerve. And I said, babe, how old do you think Shelton Benjamin is? And she looked at him. She's like, 29. I was like, try about 20 plus another about 18 more years. And she couldn't. She was very flabbergasted. And I was like, yeah, he's ageless wonder, and he looks great. I'm
level athletes, both of them.
Just insane. So I was very just impressed. I feel like they need to find they can't squash everybody. I understand that, but like we were talking Ospreay earlier. I feel like they need to kind of find that middle ground where I expected maybe, rather than a back and forth, I just want a car crash. I just want these guys to just kill each other for 6 minutes. And I feel like that's in theory, that's probably what the Murder Machines tag match could have been. And it just unfortunately didn't work out like that right now. Hopefully they'll be able to run it back at some point.
The one person we didn't give flowers to is MVP.
Oh, yes.
Always been underrated on the microphone. That guy can talk. That guy can make you listen and make you listen to what he has to say, make you want to know where they're going. Always entertaining on the microphone.
Yeah, no, I feel like when he came aboard AEW, Griffin, I knew right away he was probably going to be one of those underrated signings for the company. Just he made so much sense, and he's so good at what he does, and he can get in there, and obviously he's a decorated athlete himself, but just the fact that he's not a necessity to get in there. He can kind of just exist and be his awesome, manager self. And then, if there's like a mixed tag of some kind, he can get in there just fine. But I would prefer him just to kind of do what he's doing. And then, if there's that chance to expand the Hurt Syndicate, if and when, they go babyface. Maybe MVP goes off. Like I just never want them to join, especially if there's that speculation of Cedric Alexander potentially coming in. Some people would think that's overkill. I feel like that would be a really, really nice thing to do, especially for, they were really they were really the only good thing about pandemic WWE television, other than, eventually Roman coming back.
Yeah, I do fear the tag division not having, if you squash everybody, then you have no tag division.
Yeah.
And, all you're left with is the champions and no challengers. So hopefully they've pinpointed who is going to be the ones that eventually take the belts from them and make sure that there is a tag division after their run.
Yeah. And, we did actually have a angle afterwards, after our first match, after Kevin Knight won. And they did, let's see here. So this was our first tag match of the night. This was Josh Alexander and Takeshita versus Rocky Marrero and Ishii. For as Ishii's getting up there, he'll have these moments where he just looks like a spry 30-something again, because I felt like this was the freshest I've seen him in a ring in a long time. I mean, I love Ishii. He's one of my all-time favorites in New Japan, but maybe he was just invigorated by seeing Takeshita, because maybe Takeshita's just got that infectious energy where he just, everybody wants to just brawl and form.
They traded blows, and I think it did elevate Ishii's game to match that.
Yeah, on paper it just looked like, okay, this was going to be fine, especially like with Rocky in there. Just it seemed very fluff, but I mean, it did actually lead to something. Long story short, if you didn't watch the match, there was a miscommunication in the match, which Rocky got frustrated, and when Ishii went for a tag, Rocky left the apron, which allowed Alexander and Alexander Takeshita to hit double forearms, and Alexander hit a powerbomb to pin Ishii for the win. Match went about 10 minutes. It was fun. Fun to decent at points. Good to see Alexander, getting the win after his debut. And you know what? I didn't actually mind the way him actually losing his debut, because at that point he was, a face in theory, but then it's almost like he's repackaged as a heel. So it's just like it's fine for him. So
it was also against a top guy, and he held his own with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I feel like you don't always have to, win the debut to show that I can hang right here with Hangman. So love seeing Josh Alexander, though. Him versus Ospreay right before Ospreay came to AEW. Man, I thought that was one of the better matches that was overlooked last year on an episode of Impact, with Josh Alexander and Ospreay. That was incredible. So I love seeing Alexander in AEW now. And, Callis family, hopefully he'll not be too stuck there, because I think he's better than that.
Yeah, I think it's a fine spot for him for now, and this will be a guy that they can kind of just throw out there and have like these great matches. I mean, I'm sure he'll be a really fun C2 wrestler as well. And definitely want to go ahead and actually do a little plug here real quick. For anybody who's interested, that would like to listen to the flagship and obviously read all the newsletters available on PWTorch, please subscribe to PWTorch to gain access to Wade's full audio, to start to finish rundown of any TV shows, segment by segment, and then also you'll have access to the Wade Keller hotline at pwtorch.com/GOVIP. And, Wade does obviously the live shows. If you ever want to join Wade Keller Live here on YouTube every Monday night, Wednesday night, or Friday, covering Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown, another reason to sign up. And we do need to actually cover real quick, Griffin, the post-match, which interesting development. I guess you did mention actually the tag team division, and we had a return. Trent Beretta, he's back. I'm so glad to see Trent Beretta back, especially after that very, very serious knee. Or no, I'm sorry, not knee, neck. It was he went in for neck surgery. So great to see him back. I mean, he looks like $1 million. So Roppongi Vice actually attacked Ishii after the match. Don Callis gave Trent a wrench, a giant wrench. It looked like a monkey wrench, and nailed Ishii and laid him out. And Roppongi Vice now a part of the Don Callis family. The family grows, Griffin.
I'd have to call that a Memphis wrench. That was playing to the back row of the audience. They could that thing. Yeah, great to see Trent back. Good to see a heel Rocky Romero too. I think that's not
time
for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think hasn't really been any interest as a I think he's a nice guy to have in their steady pair of hands just to lose a match. But I'm interested to see what him and Trent as part of the Don Callis family adds, because obviously before Trent's injury, he was still part of the family when Don Callis was trying to recruit Orange Cassidy. So I'm interested. I was always a believer of Best Friends. Griffin, were you fans of Best Friends as a tag team? I always enjoyed them very much. Yeah. I think they were kind of an acquired taste. I think they had to kind of grow on you. They were actually one of my wife's favorites. I don't know if that was just more of Orange Cassidy, because anytime she heard the song, she'd always get Best Friends, and she always got super excited about that.
It was also the era of Danhausen.
Yes.
And if you look over my shoulder, I have a whole Schaffhausen. So I am a big fan of that guy.
Yes. And you already mentioned this lady who I am already just a big fan of, Megan Bayne. I do need to mention Lexi Nair was actually backstage with Mercedes Moné and Harley Cameron. Harley was actually backstage with, talking with Mini Moné. And I kind of heard a great analogy from a friend, Griffin. I can't get it out of my head. This is kind of a mini Rock and Sock connection.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Their chemistry is just wonderful. I really hope at some point, I don't know if there's a copyright situation with the Mini Moné, because I believe Harley Cameron said on Talk Is Jericho she made it. I wish, I don't know if it's like a licensing from like Mercedes side or how that works. They need to make sure they have those things available before All In, because I'm telling you, those things will fly off the shelf.
Yeah, man, I never thought a puppet would be so over in wrestling. So if I do the top 5 lists of puppets in wrestling, she definitely beats Rocco.
Yes, so by miles. And just the fact that she's so very, very, very talented. I'm jealous.
She found her character. I remember when she started with that group with Johnny TV, and she was just
QTV.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was just another big-breasted blonde, which very similar to MJF's segment. Stuff sets the business back about 20 years. And I'm so happy to see her get over on character, and just shows you that character is more over than breasts.
Yeah, and
we're good, but character's better.
Yeah, character is better, and I wish I was as good as one thing as she is with like the multiple things she's fantastic at. She can speak all the probably at this point 10 languages. I wouldn't be surprised, because she can just pick it up. But moving forward, Megan Bayne, like you mentioned earlier, Griffin, I saw her in the Live Austin show in February. Always been a big fan of Megan Bayne. I just remember her in the AEW Dark days, seeing her, and just I was amazed, and I wanted to see more of her. and then there was an injury for a long time, and then there was really weird reporting. She was with AEW, wasn't. I had pitched all along. I had wanted her to be the heavy for Monet rather than Camille.
Yeah.
But this pathway seems to be, a lot better. And I really like how they, AEW of old and their kind of bad habits, they would have kind of moved on from Megan Bayne, or maybe picked her back up in like 6 months later just for fun. They haven't forgotten Bayne at all. She's been featured ever since the loss of Toni Storm, which you mentioned the match with Toni, and I thought, to me, I still feel like that was my favorite match on the entire card, just in terms of if you look at just the position they were in, and the fact that was that on paper that could have easily gone awry based on Megan Bayne's experience. But my co-host Amanda Jenny of the Collision Cafe did bring up, if you look at her cage match, she had actually been wrestling a lot of men for a while, so she's had a very different styles to really kind of go against. She's been doing GCW for a while. She was in Stardom. I just think she's got it. She's got the airport. She passes the airport test. She's got, presence, because, the kids like to say aura, presence. She's got that type of ability where if me and you are in a room talking, she walks in, we both stop talking because we just want to pay attention to Megan Bayne, because she's tall. She's obviously got a wonderful look. I feel like she's not clunky in the ring at all. And that, because especially she's so much bigger than a lot of these ladies. And I feel like she's not this like big clunky person that it's like you see some of these guys coming out of the performance center, you want to just get a squirt of oil and put it in between their knees, because it's just like, God, can you move your feet a little bit? But I never get this vibe from her at all. I'm a big fan, and I already kind of have it in my head. She's probably she's winning the TBS title sooner than later. I have it kind of like circled as World's End. She's going to be a champion.
Yeah, I think TBS title and a good long run. Let her beat Cargill's run that she had, and redefine her as the greatest TBS champion. But right now they've got it on Mercedes, and plenty of story to tell there. So, but I could see her being the one to dethrone her, whether they wanted to turn her into a baby face, or maybe Monet's a baby face by the end of this and beaten by a heel Bayne. So, her and Harley's a great way to turn her baby face. I love the little shots she took at the puppet when Harley was in the ring, that she just doesn't like that thing. And they played very well off of it. So started to turn me around on Monet, which I was never a Sasha Banks person. So turning me around on Monet took a lot of effort, and it took Harley Cameron and a puppet to do it.
Yeah, we do have to mention the offense that Megan Bayne used. Double German suplex. But that was great. Both ladies that she wrestled took wonderful bumps, and the two power bombs hitting up until leading into the running power bomb, that looked great. And then her flying, I forget what Nigel called it. It's where she basically takes somebody's head off with her diving clothesline. It looks great. And just doing the fates descent on either. Now, the only problem is she keeps doing this. She's gonna get over her. That's the problem.
Yeah,
because the fans were already like, I feel like she got one of the louder reactions all night, because everybody was really into her.
Kind of the same thing Undertaker would say about Gunther. You've got to learn how to become a heel, or you're going to go over as a baby face, because the crowd is going to love how much of a badass you are. So you've got to make sure you're not such a badass the crowd loves you. You've got to be a bully badass, or you've got to show a little bit of backing off and a little bit of fear here and there.
Yeah. So we'll see where she is in the next month or two. So, but if this is her direction for now, That's quite fine. I could easily see her in some type of feud with Jamie Hayter, and that sounds wonderful. I'm completely down with that if that's the direction. Yeah. Let's see.
Although probably need something for Jamie Hayter to win, and I would like to see Megan Bayne continue to win her feuds.
Yeah. Let's see. Bayne takes some hard bumps and also delivers some from Goodfellas. Money breaking the record, and let's see. She's been wrestling all of the shows. I'm here for it. And AEW was in Boston, though, right? Yes, they were in Boston today and yesterday. I do like and appreciate Bayne. I don't know if she's actually been listening to Coach, but if you look how her first couple weeks when she was doing the F5, she was kind of doing a back bump. But now every time she does it, she'll go on her right knee and she'll put her hair back as I just hit my chair, but she'll do like a hair flip. And I think that those small nuances, I like that. But, well, because it that shows me you're either listening and you're coachable, which I like. So,
well, and it's all about making you remember things. You know, wrestling is moments.
Yes.
And the pose is a moment. I mean, The Rock got over on an eyebrow. So, you know, it's all about how you pose and how you grab the attention of the audience.
Yeah. Let's see, going down the show. So we had a video package for the five-tool player, Anthony Bowens. Where are you out right now with this Anthony Bowens face turn, Griffin? I think they probably need to tone it down a little bit, just because I feel like they like to say five-tool player. Like it's just like they're trying to. Yeah, you don't have to say it every other sentence. We got it. We're here for it. I mean, obviously, I was happy to see him back for the pay-per-view. I've always been a Bowens guy. I mean, he's a good-looking guy. I think he offers a lot of different, avenues to actually represent, which I'm super, if that's an opportunity AEW wants to pursue, I think that'd be really cool. He's obviously like a mainstream guy. He likes baseball. I hope at some point he's in the C2 because I feel like if you go back and look at some of his matches he had, especially with Brian Danielson, I believe he had one in there with John Moxley too. So he's got some chops in there. I feel like he can go. Probably need to tweak this a little bit, and I don't know if Billy Gunn still needs to exist in his corner. Let's not have any remnants of the Acclaimed exist anymore. I guess that would probably elevate me to wanting to get behind him a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I love the Acclaimed, so there's a little part of me sad to see him broken up, but I understand wanting to move forward in singles. I thought the angle on the 0 Hour in the pay-per-view where he came out for the open challenge and destroyed his old tag team partner was a great reintroduction of Bowens. Great looking guy, good looking gear as far as memorable in the ring. I think five-tool player, when you're saying you're five different things, I think it's hard for the audience to latch onto that. The brain really stops grabbing at three. Yeah, I think really where the mind focuses. So I think the five-tool player, I can't tell you what the five tools are, but that's what he's going with. As far as Billy Gunn, I say that maybe have an angle down the road to maybe have an angle down the road that splits them off peacefully, and maybe Billy just becomes a trainer. Maybe he goes back with his sons somehow, but just an amicable parting of ways, and he goes on his own. I do think he'll go on to have some great matches. And as long as it's not patronizing, I think he's a great wrestler to have on your roster in June to celebrate Pride.
Yeah, no, I feel like there's so many different cool things that you could do. I almost wonder, should they have just maybe gone with him joining the Hurt Syndicate as a possibility, just because there was all those extra breadcrumbs between cards he gave out. obviously he gave one to Monet too, which is still threads they never picked up.
Yeah.
I don't hate the idea of him going out, and if he really believes in this, at least AEW's really given him like the good old call a try. I mean, it got him his own theme music. They secured it. The gear is very kind of like American Gladiators ish.
Yeah,
like it just gives me a vibe.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
different.
Yeah, no,
that
different
needs to happen.
Yeah, different's good. And for anybody listening and watching the show, if you could please, I'm sorry, if you're watching the show live on YouTube, if you could please like the stream, subscribe, and smash the subscribe button. We'd really, really appreciate it. And we thank everybody for listening and watching along. This is my, as far as actually doing with the torch, this is kind of like my first kind of venue to do it. So I know I'm a little shaky right now. It's been a while since I've actually hosted a live YouTube show. So trying to get in there and get all our plugs in so we can kind of, get everything on. And we really appreciate you guys. If you do want to get in contact with Wade, please email Wade at wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com, and he'll answer your questions there. And any new comments, good fellas. Still see you in the chat here. Tony, let's see, pull your comment here. Tony breaks up tag teams too early. Shout out to SCU and Luchasaurus. I wouldn't say he broke them up too early, Goodfellas. If anything, I feel like they didn't break up the Acclaim. Well, I don't think they broke up the Acclaim soon enough, honestly. I think the momentum, I feel Griffin died when they lost to the Guns for the tag titles, because I don't know if you remember that awesome match that they had with FTR in the main event. I didn't like that direction because that they were almost, the Guns were essentially the transition champs for the FTR to beat them. Yeah. Obviously, FTR did, the great business with the Briscoes, the Doc Holler match, prior, which, it was still a classic. I would have almost rather FTR just beat the Acclaimed outright then and there, and then you could have maybe had a different direction for them. I felt like once they lost the tag titles, that really lost their momentum. Now, they were still big merch people. They were still, they had the moment at All In 1 when they won the trios belts. I just felt like that steam after they lost the tag titles, I don't think they really ever recovered as far as, for me, I don't think.
Yeah, they caught lightning in a bottle, and they had already had plans that they didn't want to deviate from putting the belts back on FTR, and felt like they needed a mailman to get it there to have the title in between. I don't know if they wanted FTR to be seen as baby faces, and they would not been seen as baby faces at that point had they take on the Acclaim. So I understand them, to having the mailmen with the Guns, or having the belts in between. But yeah, I thought they should have just kept it on the Acclaimed longer. I thought it was hot. It was over. Man, I was at a show while they had the tag titles, and they weren't even wrestling the show. They just came out to cut a commercial promo. Like during a commercial break, they cut a promo for the crowd, and
oh wow,
be over. I do think whether or not they break tag teams up, I feel like once they decide on an angle, sometimes they don't take time to tell an angle in AEW. So sometimes when it's like, we're going to break them up, they just do it instead of tease their way to it and put in storyline. One of the most rushed angles for AEW was, Sting's retirement, to say, all right, well, we're going to disrupt our entire tag team division, put the belts on these guys, and then retire the tag belts, and then have a tournament to have new tag champions. And, the whole angle was built in weeks for a retirement of a legend. And, I've seen that way too many times with AEW, but then I've also seen their long angles get hurt by injuries or like that happens, where MJF Cole was a great story.
Yep.
And injury just dropped the whole thing. So, you've got to find a way to tell the story without going so long someone gets hurt, but also take time to tell the story, because the best part's not the ending. The best part's the story getting to the ending, and that's what makes the ending matter.
Yeah, I always enjoyed the journey. Always. Speaking of Adam Cole, he did actually have an open challenge to defend the TNT title. Griffin, and lo and behold, Claudio answered the bell. Really cool. I really like how they filmed his entrance.
Yes.
Where he almost looked like a supervillain coming down the escalator and doing kind of like the TV shot where Cole was just looking and just groaning like, oh hell, why do I have to wrestle the human horse?
Yeah.
And over delivery, I was kind of shaking on my expectations of this, just because you do the open challenge and usually it could be a triage of people. I was kind of hoping a little bit, hey, maybe this could be a really cool spot for hologram, just because right now the TNT title doesn't really have a direction. The Paragon, as they're known as now, I guess they're really trying to get rid of any remnants of the Devil storyline, which I'm kind of okay with. If they want to really do their own thing, that's completely fine. But I think for Cole's first title defense as a babyface, I thought he did fine here. Claudio is obviously just a maniac. Somehow Claudio got a nice little cut on his left arm. I'm not really sure how that happened, but Claudio was throwing Cole around on the barricade, threw him over the crowd onto the wood floor, which I was amazed to see that was the landing spot, because it almost the way they looked and filmed at the floor, it almost kind of looked like I thought I was at a bowling alley there for a second, just because I was like, wow, that is just some really hard wood floor there. And they go back and forth with for a bit. Cole hit some super kicks, actually hit a really nice super kick to Claudio's left arm, which kind of, I feel like telegraphed the finish here a little bit, and it plays into the overarching kind of long story throughout the show of the Death Riders mad at everything. So Claudio's basically, I believe he went up in, let's see here. What was it? Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. So Claudio went up for a suplex. I'm sorry. I lost my train of spot here. So Claudio went up for a superplex, actually hit the superplex, and Claudio was going to go for the cover, but Claudio couldn't put all the pressure on his left arm. And due to that, Cole was able to backslide him and retain the TNT title. And, after that, Claudio kind of threw a fit. They were breaking stuff and they broke the table. And then nobody had a table to sit at the rest of the night. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Claudio actually threw a chair and hit Nigel, jerk. Like, protect Nigel. What? Yeah. we got to have bodyguards out there for Nigel and Tony, just because everybody wants to beat him up at some point.
I know.
Over delivery at that, but fun.
Different part of the show, but are we leading to a Nigel and Tony Schiavone versus FTR match?
Let's go.
Yeah, I loved the shot. I think one of the coolest thing with the type of arenas AEW's been booking in is shooting the Death Rider entrance.
That's gotten a lot better.
Just because they don't want to be a part of the locker room, so they still make their own entrance from the crowds, and they've found a unique way to do it every week. And I thought this one looked very cool. The TNT, the open challenge. The open challenge is a fun gimmick to debut somebody or bring somebody back, but eventually it can lose steam. The open challenge, almost for the longevity of it, you can't live up to the surprise every week. So, the old school TV title where you'd have the number one contenders match one week and then the champion defend it the next week. And then it would just be that's a regular title that got defended every 2 weeks and had its TV format time limit. And, I think that would be a better way to go with the TNT title, because, here you sat anticipating, you mentioned a couple names that you anticipated that like it could be Hologram. He's a great person, to have on Collision. He's usually on there and would put on a great match. But, so you have all these anticipations, and the problem with the anticipation is, sometimes the surprise is going to live up to that anticipation and sometimes it's not. Where if you're anticipating a contender match and then you get to think a week or, anticipate that match for a week, that's a much better way to do it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to really rack my brain here.
Speaking of, go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, just a side mention. Sorry, my brain works, and I thought of it because we were talking about formatting of a show. I love the kickoff of Collision. I don't watch Collision every week, so I don't do that all the time. But it was a recap of the night before for Dynamite. And, man, I think Dynamite should do that for Collision, too, just to keep the audience. This is what just happened. But again, that was just kind of formatting of the night. But and a thought came up, so sorry to derail yours.
No, not at all. That's actually interesting. No, they normally don't do that. Now they might kind of pick bits all throughout Dynamite, and I would say they obviously did that last night, kind of recapping the FTR stuff, which is that was the biggest thing on the show. So I would have definitely showed maybe that Menard, Cool Hand Ange post match promo that was really good. A bummer that they didn't throw that on TV. They should at some point because that was really, really good. No, I was trying to rack my brain here and trying to really remember the last time the TNT titles meant anything to me.
Christian Cage.
Yeah.
That was the last. That's the last time I can remember the TNT title really mattering. He made that title matter.
Yeah, and I was trying to think even before that because there was the weird stuff with Joe, Powerhouse, and Joe and Wardlow, all between that.
Yeah,
I'm hopeful once they consolidate what is it? What's Okada's title? I'm having a brain fart here, Griffin. Continental title.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that'll improve potentially the singles scene. And like you had mentioned, the thing that's tricky about the TV title, I really like Adam Cole. I really want to root for him as a person because he really, really seems like a nice fella.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's, because people always like to give him a hard time because he's obviously not the biggest guy.
Yeah.
I feel like he's been hitting the weights a little bit, and people need to kind of give him some props for that. And I feel like he's trying to go out there and do his best. And I really want him to, exceed. But, maybe for a TV, title wrestler that's going to be open to whatever, you do have to have that kind of flair. And when you were talking about it, it just kind of makes me think, God, Mark Briscoe would be the perfect person for this title.
Yeah.
I'm trying to just think if, what the direction is. The only really kind of long-term direction I could see, just because I would be interested to see if they could recreate any magic at some point and the dynamic would be different. Cole and Ricochet, I think could be really fun.
Yeah.
That could be really, really fun. And, and I do think they need to be careful because where they've gotten in trouble, I think, especially in the last pay-per-view, since this is more a TV title adjacent, this doesn't need to be on every pay-per-view. And I think, feedback from the previous show Dynasty, I don't think Garcia and Cole unfortunately belonged on the pay-per-view. I thought if they would have opened, I thought they could have maybe stood a chance, but once they were kind of globbed there towards the middle of the card, or towards the end of the card, and only got 15 minutes, I just knew that was going to be DOA. So
I never understood a television title being defended on a pay-per-view or a house show. Isn't it a television title? Isn't that the TNT title? So I really feel it should be a TV focused belt.
Yeah, I agree. Derek here's got a good comment. Did you know Powerhouse Hobbs has been a member of 4 factions: AEW Team Task, QTV, Don Callis, and now Ops. I heard Power House Ops. I saw a name kind of going around there. Let's see. Derek's got another comment here. Adam Cole looks better lately. Does not look like a pro golfer, tennis player, and not as scrawny as Gene back in the AEW days. Okay.
Yeah, I've always felt that on Cole. It's kind of what I feel about a lot of the women's wrestlers. It's why I've never been a big Monet person. Like their body frames are so small that I kind of sit there and worry about the bumps they're taking from people so much larger than them that I want to enjoy the presentation, not think about is this guy going to be okay.
Yeah, I mean the crazy thing is Mercedes. She's probably one of my favorite bumpers in wrestling, quite honestly. And I feel like a lot of the women now, because I feel like even Mercedes has gone kind of through a transformation. Because if you look at her now compared to her, NXT days or when she was still kicking around with Sasha Banks, I feel like she's definitely toned up. Herself. So no, but I understand, because like back in the day, everybody was not that lacked that extra kind of beef. So at least they've got that protection when you're taking that crazy bump on your neck.
I'm just speaking as an older man with with lots of joint and back pain. I feel.
Oh no, throw out your back. That's no bueno. For any listeners and viewers of this live YouTube program, did want to remind you, if you're interested in being a contributor to PWTorch, volunteers are welcome. If you're interested in being a contributor to PWTorch.com with written weekly reports and columns, all you have to do is apply to our team. All you have to do is email Wade Keller, and that'll get your foot in the door there, and we'll go see if Wade can find an opportunity for you. If you want to just email Wade, kellerwade@gmail.com if you're interested in joining the team. And please, if you are watching the YouTube page, if you can smash the like and subscribe button, we'd really appreciate it. And we'll go on here. Let's see our next match. And of course, match with Cole went about 15 minutes. Let's see. We had a interview with Brian Keith and Big Bill backstage with Lexi Nair. Big Bill was disappointed in Chris Jericho, and Bill said he was angry. Brian Keith said, "Hey, we're family. We shouldn't put our dirty laundry out there, and we should only handle it internally." Bill said, "We shouldn't be living in the shadow of Chris Jericho." So learning trees still exist, I guess, which is unfortunate, Griffin, because I like actually both guys, and they probably need to do different things at this point.
I think at this point they're going to tag and have that as a story of why they're a team while Fozzie's on tour. And then when the Fozzie tour wraps up, I'm sure Jericho will be back to blow it off.
Yeah, that seems like the likely direction there. Fifth match of the night, we had a LFI Trios match, squash match essentially. I do like me some Roosh. I feel like if anybody, his stuff actually looks like he wants to kill and fight somebody, and just the bull's horn's always fun. I like Dralistico as far as a luchador. I think he's got one of my favorite looks as a luchador. I think his gear and his mask is so cool looking. And it's hard not to be a fan of the Beast Mortos. I wish they would. Yeah, I love Mortos. I wish they would stop beating him all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, they obviously got the easy win here. Back on TV. Good to see Roosh on there. And I imagine maybe they're setting them up as future challengers down the road for Ops. And sure, why not? Samoa Joe and Beast Mortos. That sounds interesting. Why not?
Yeah, I do. I think luchador is a good base. Like Mortos is often underappreciated and does end up losing because he gets to be the guy that makes the smaller guy look amazing by beating such a beast. But yeah, I would want to see him win a little bit more and make those wins count. Put him, have him be a luchador killer, just have him come in and beating all of the smaller guys for a little while. If they want to do a singles run at some point with him, I'd love to see that. But good team, and it'll be an entertaining trios match. But unfortunately, too many trios matches are just entertaining matches and don't always have the full story going into them that really makes the match matter.
Yeah, that's the thing. So maybe they can get on track with the ops as the new guys in charge now. This was our sixth match tonight. And title change. Nick Wayne versus Commander. This was loads and loads of fun. This would, if you were going to have any kind of criticisms or, man, I wish AEW would have had this. The only thing that the anniversary show didn't have last night was kind of like that fun luchador mask. If you were going to kind of tip your hat to like Rey Mysterio or Eddie Guerrero, you could have had maybe one of those out there. If anything, but again, the Dynamite show last night was perfect. And this was loads of fun. I mean, Commander's always an underrated guy. I think he's a great luchador in there, but Nick Wayne, he's a guy, Griffin, I've wanted to really see more on television, especially since he's been this role as a heel. I think he's really starting to get it, and just the fact that he's still not even legal drinking age yet is still like fantastic to me. I'm glad that Christian Cage put over the idea of, hey, I'm the reason I put you in that opportunity for the best of the Super Juniors, and now I want you to go out and win that title all by yourself tonight. And, he did. And, a good back and forth between both guys. And Commander went for his kind of springboard off the top rope. Nick Wayne put his knees up, and I believe they called it the protege plex. Protege plex. I like that, which is different from his like indie finishers. And he won. Got a new ROH champion, and I know ROH is kind of just people kind of just like hold their nose when everybody says it, but especially for Nick Wayne, if he's not like wrestling on all the time on AEW, which he should anyway, I think that's actually a good idea to kind of get him on these ROH shows, because especially if they want to put a nice little name on there too. Because anytime I've gone to one of the ROH shows in Dallas, I've always had a blast. So they're very, very fun. I mean, obviously you still run into the problem. There's here and there where they can actually go a little long, which is, AW 101 if the pay-per-view goes a little long. But I don't actually hate that idea, because I don't know how many matches he has in his cage match currently, but I'm sure he could lead an experienced guy just fine. And I'm sure this will be a nice little conduit to tell the story of, hopefully this eventually will lead to Christian and Cope reuniting. Griffin, are you potentially into the idea of Cope and Christian reuniting?
You have to be. I mean, as a longtime wrestling fan, I mean, that's the reason Cope went there, is to have fun with his buddy. And yeah, we all knew it was going to go there eventually. It's all in how they get there. So still a stretch for me to see Christian teaming up with Cope at this point, but we'll see if they can get there.
Well, if nothing less, if Dallas was looking to move some tickets, you slap Christian Cage and Cope on there, and any lapsed wrestling fan, especially in the state of Texas, they're going to come out and see those boys. I would just love to see the movement once. I'm assuming they're going to be announced with FTR. It seems like the proper direction.
Yeah.
Because you saw the movement once people thought Swerve was going to maybe beat Moxley. I think it was about 1,000 tickets, or, it was a crazy number where people actually thought maybe Swerve was actually going to dethrone Moxley. He was going to be the one main eventing All In. So it would be an easy way to sell tickets. And I think the prospect of all four of those guys in the ring together, I think that's going to just create tag team magic together, quite frankly. Yeah. And that's what I've been kind of asking for. I'll just go back to our word of the day, Griffin range. I really, really hope on the Double or Nothing card, give me FTR and Paragon on that card. No titles, because rack your brain and try to really remember a really solid tag team match that AEW had on the card, just like a straight up tag team match that like within the last, I don't know, year that's really stuck out to you.
It has been a little while. I mean, the tag team champions, that's not their role right now, is to steal the show with tag team wrestling. Their role is to be dominant tag team champions. FTR is that traditional, 80s Arn Tully rock and roll traditional tag team. And, Edge and Christian, or Cope and Christian Cage have such a legacy there. And then, the Paragon, great tag team wrestlers. Yeah, I want to see FTR be a great tag team again and show tag team wrestling what it is and what it can be, because tag team wrestling is some of the most fun wrestling to watch when done right.
I agree. I agree. I mean, Sting and Darby, I think that still gives me, that's probably some of the most fun I think I've had watching. And it was funny because like even on kind of like strange bedfellow tag teams AEW's had, I really liked the Ricky Starks and Big Bill pairing. I really did.
Yeah.
I mean, I like both guys. I'm hoping, when they're ready, you want to talk about tag team wrestling, Griffin, give me a babyface workhorseman team versus FTR. I just really, this was like ages ago, but this was before Anthony Henry's injury. There was they just threw it on there. I don't know why. And also there was they wrestled FTR one time, and it went about 3 or 4 minutes, but they wrestled Shibata and Daniel Garcia just for reasons I'll never know. And I've been telling people, the workhorsemen, they need to put these guys on TV because they are so good. I mean, obviously they've worked a lot of indies together, and JD Drake, I mean, he's just awesome. Anyway, anybody that doesn't know his story, freaking awesome bowler, which is really cool. Like, just I don't know how many perfect games he's done, but there's like some stories there. But I like both of those guys. That's like a team I would love FTR to go against. Hopefully, if their direction is to kind of bloody up former friends or kind of like undercard tag teams, if they eventually bloody up the Outrunners at some point, I'm open to that idea as well.
Or Top Flight. I really like Dante Martin. I think he's incredible to watch.
I do too, Griffin. I don't. How can I say this? I don't know if they want it. That's my only thing. I haven't really seen enough from them. I like Dante a lot. I've seen him several times in person. I just don't know if that's it, or if they really want it. So I don't know. I just, they've been in AEW for a while, and I just, injuries happen, which kind of sucks. It definitely derailed their momentum a lot. Nothing's really resonated for me. And I don't know anything about them other than their brothers from Minnesota. That's like,
and that's the character part that needs to build.
Yes.
Watching Dante in the ring, that man moves. I don't know how he moves the way he moves, but he's just something to watch.
Yeah. Let's see. Top Flight challenge the Crew to a tornado tag team match next week on Collision. So I'm trying to get the alliteration down for the Collision show next week, Griffin. So I'm trying to. They labeled it Playoff Palooza. I think that's what it was. Some iteration where they're going to be the lead in an NBA playoff game next week, which I'm sure they'll get a good number for that if that's the case, because I don't know if there'll be any other top tier competition on next week. So it was something playoff adjacent. If anybody in the chat wants to help us out, if I'm getting that wrong, feel free. Let's see here.
I'd ask. I always tell people I like my sports predetermined.
I completely agree. So, true story. For some reason, for the main event for the tag team, Griffin, I swear on a stack of Bibles, I thought it was Statlander and Jamie Hayter versus Money and Stat. Or Money and Money and Harley Cameron. For some reason, I just had it in my head. But then I went back and looked at the match graphic and said, no, Julia Hart. Maybe I was just thinking because they were talking about him. Yeah.
They had that promo earlier in the match.
Yeah.
Or in the card about that coming up.
When they played her music, I just was befuddled. I just thought, was that just a production error? And I went back and looked at the thing and it said, nope. I was like, okay, I guess I'm just crazy. So maybe I was just so excited for the match that they have upcoming this Wednesday on Dynamite. But the match was fun. I like this a lot. I mean, the story of this match was obviously Monet and Stat rekindling their chemistry together. There was really a really cool sequence where Monet did Three Amigos, and then Mercedes was trying to get her up again. Harley Cameron went in to help her to suplex her, but then Statlander hit them both with like 3 double suplexes, which was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The finish, I really liked this finish. I thought this was really, really clever how Julia Hart actually trapped Mercedes Moné in the ropes with the tarantula so she couldn't escape. And then to send a message to Jamie Hayter, Chris Statlander, gives Harley Cameron the Haterade to win the match. So Mercedes, they don't send the crowd home happy per se, but I mean, I think everybody was still behind Statlander. Everybody loves Statlander. And yeah, so I mean, by proxy, since Statlander won, she probably is going to lose if wrestling has taught us anything. You never want to win before a big match, Griffin, because then you will generally lose.
Yeah, but then you had the face-off with Tony Storm and Statlander at
the post match. Yes.
So you wonder where that's going to go.
I don't know where I want, because who do you think Statlander or Monet is the ultimate winner here?
And like I said, the story's there with the belt collector to collect 2 more belts. But do you want to put both of your singles women's belts on the same woman who's also carrying 3 other titles around with her?
I do not.
Yeah.
And it just seems when they took those initial photos announcing All In and they showed Athena and Mercedes together with titles, that was an accident. That was obviously staged, and that was going to be a thing. Athena's from Dallas.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I think it would be, I wouldn't like how they would have Monet and Tony go against each other now.
No.
I feel like Mercedes could easily lose the TBS title and lose upwards. Yes. Kind of like how any IC title holder would do back in the day, which is completely fine. I'm just surprised. I don't even know. I really want Stat to win, but then I look at it too. It just, a heel Jamie Hayter makes more sense for Tony the face.
Yeah.
And, I like either combination because whether it's Statlander again or even Jamie, I think her and Monet going against each other, you've got that big little combination where my favorite thing about Jamie Hayter, Griffin, and I think everybody's got kind of like their own thing in wrestling. I am a big intent person, and Jamie Hayter is one of my favorite people because whether it's like a pointless brawl, she'll always gear back and act like she's going to take somebody's head off, whether she is actually going to do it or not. And I think that's really to me, that just like when people don't do that, it just gives me the ick. And it just really upsets me because one of Wade's biggest things is when people don't actually physically break up a pinfall in tag team wrestling. Anytime you just hit them, the officials will just think that as a breakup.
Yeah.
I just really like her intent and her potentially taking Mercedes heads off. That sounds really fun to me. So I don't know. I always thought that the direction was Jamie Hayter going heel versus Toni Storm.
Yeah. Statlander, the problem is, we talked about rushing things. How many times has she turned babyface and heel over, the last 6 months? And, where does that leave her? Maybe a Hayter turning, but it would be, I don't know if Hayter has enough heat behind her. Can they heat that up enough before July? They got quite a bit of time. So she's good enough and they could heat her up. So I think that's the one I want. I think you talked me into wanting to see Hayter win this thing.
Yeah, I don't. If Stat wins, I feel like she has to win. And I do kind of worry about the dichotomy where I don't want to have to root against either Stat or Toni Storm because Toni Storm's almost just on another level right now. And I feel like, we didn't really have a chance to talk a lot about Toni Storm, but I mean, she's just great. I feel like anything she's doing right now, it just turns into gold. Not that her and Stat couldn't knock it out of the park, but I do feel like Statlander is almost like a women's division adjacent of a Hangman Page, where she's going on this journey. Everybody's always getting behind her. Everybody loves Stat, especially like with her injury history. I think she's blown out both of her knees. So I just the fact that she's still this good with that injury luck, I think that's amazing. I think it would be incredible for her to get a moment. I'm just, I ultimately look at it from a storyline perspective. Anytime Toni Storm's as mentioned wanting to wrestle Wendy Griffin, I was always under the impression that was a line for mentioning Mercedes the entire time.
Yeah, I do think they need a Wendy Richter appearance at some point.
Oh, and that's the thing, because doesn't she have the Legends contract for WWE? I'm not sure.
Oh, I don't know if she does or not. I only know if they're in the video game. That's how I know or see an action figure. And
I thought that was the reason why she hasn't rolled up at this point. But my interpretation, anytime Toni Storm does mention Wendy Richter, it's always been an appointed shot at Mercedes Moné. And, there's obviously different pay-per-views that could go. You could definitely go all out. I don't think you're running that at Forbidden Door. Could you do that at World's End? Maybe. Could you do that at Wrestle Dream? That's an option as well. I just feel like Toni versus Mercedes, where Mercedes is the, ultimately going to be crowned as the AEW Women's Champion. I think that's a good story to tell. And, maybe eventually that's where Stat finally gets over. Yeah. And that's where she finally gets Mercedes. So,
yep.
But just kudos to them because they've done a really good job, and I've seen more people kind of more intrigued about the women's kind of side of the bracket. But there's still a lot of interest from the men too, because I would like to think we're not going to see Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay again. It's probably a little bit too soon for that, but I'm surprised that we'd be getting so many quality pay-per-view matches on free television, because if they're doing Hangman and Fletcher on Dynamite, which I don't think they announced, but I just assume probably. If they want, if they want to do that on the thank you, Derek, for the alliteration. So next week on Collision, Playoff Palooza, because they like alliteration there at AEW. hate that maybe I'm trying to think. Maybe you do like a crazy lead in with them or something to kind of keep folks tuned in for the big lead in that they're going to get from the basketball game. That's an option. All right. Well, let's see here. I think that was the show, Griffin. I don't think I have anything else. Let's going through our chats here. And let's see. Good fella. Let's see. Yes, Stat is very good at the graps. Big fan of Statlander. Whatever direction is with her. Because right now, I guess she doesn't really have a character. Like, she doesn't really have a character. I mean, you would love for them to kind of lean in a little bit more on her background. Just because there was that weird period where she was West Oakley, now she's not, and she was trying to get back with Willow, and is that still a thing? So probably want to add a little bit more depth so that way we can kind of reintroduce, because we've got all these new fans who are streamers now. They may not know Stat's backstory. All right. Well, Griffin, I think that's everything I had at the moment. I guess we can go ahead and get out of here. But let's tell the audio and the visual listeners at this point, like what you do at the Torch and where they can, subscribe and follow all your stuff.
Yeah. So I've been rewriting for the last 2 weeks and put in the third one today. That'll be up next week, I presume. A top 5 list. So I've been watching wrestling for 33, 34 years, and top 5 lists are a fun thing for me to put together. So just wrote top 5 heel turns in honor of the Cena heel turn. We're going to be watching the match between him and Cody this weekend. So had the idea for the top 5 heel turns. So just joining the team and hoping to do some more audio as well. And check me out on nerdstalgia.shop is the website. So
appreciate that. And anybody that likes the Collision coverage, please consider subscribing to the VIP platform at PWTorch. I'm one half of the Collision Cafe, joined by Amanda Jenny. We review Collision, talk about all the nuances going on in AEW, casual, maybe other wrestling adjacent topics here and there if there's not a lot going on. But we really appreciate everybody tuning in. Derek Mitchell and Goodfella, you guys stayed in pretty much the entire time, so really, really appreciate you guys. You've been very kind. No, this probably wasn't the I'll get better at this. So our second go around will get a little bit better because I'm more familiar where everything's at now. So I feel like I'll be a little bit more prepared next time. But I really appreciate you guys. This has been Brian Zilem with Griffin. Thank you for joining the AEW Collision post show here at PWTorch, and we will see you next time.
Thanks.